Hi everyone, welcome to Mama Star X channel. I decided to make this video to share with you guys, my followers, and even if you're not and you're here for the first time, welcome. Some of the experience that I've had in the last month and a half. I just made this video in Spanish and now I decided I gotta make it for you guys because I think that some of these insights that I've been having is worth sharing, especially at a time where there are so many people upset, tense, and stressed because some of their habits have been broken. That's right, we're creatures of habits. And sometimes it doesn't occur to us to think about what we're doing repeatedly. And we don't ask ourselves if those things are good or not. We just do them because that's what we're accustomed to. And I feel like this is part of what the purpose of COVID is to finally stop everything that we're doing and get a feel of our own reality and see if what we have created so far is exactly what we desire. I know that, the news, the media is doing a really good job to keep many people vibrating in a very confusing and stress emotional environment. But, you don't have to. We don't have to. We always have choices. The question is whether we have the capacity to see them. And when we are in a state of mind that is closed up, stress and tense, it's impossible to see them, to see our options. So that's why I decided to make this video, because I wanted to share with you the insights that I've gathered in my journey since I left home a month and a half ago. Just like yourself, I was impacted by this virus where I lost my job and I didn't know exactly how I was going to survive. But the one thing that I became aware from the beginning is that it was really important for me to focus on my creativity and not let my mind determine my reality. So while people were trying to keep up with the news and trying to figure out who created the virus, how it came to the States, and how it is that it was spreading around the world, I decided to not see any TV and just let all of my creativity come out. Now, I know that some people are probably going to criticize me, but it doesn't matter whether you do or not. What matters is what we feel inside. And I am not here to say that the choices that you made were wrong. I'm just here to remind you that you are a vibrational being, and whatever you decide to let in is going to affect your reality in a good way or in a bad way. Now, what I've seen is that there are many people that are focusing in a negative way with this situation with COVID-19. And the one insight that became very clear in my journey was that I had a choice. I had a choice to look at this situation in a positive way or in a negative way. It's funny because when I decided, or it came clear to me that I needed to take this journey, I told my loved ones, and their response right away was, "Are you crazy? What are you doing?" Now, I knew that they were saying that because they care about me. But I also have become aware over time that your loved ones sometimes are the worst people in regards to letting you follow your own intuition. Although I knew they meant well, I could also feel their fear. And that was the fear that I did not want to get in my way and paralyze me from doing the things that I wanted to. So I waited until the energies settled down. I waited until they stopped asking me when I was going to leave. And when they sort of eased into the possibility that I was not going anywhere, that's when I packed my bags, got in my car, and left. Now, apart from doing this trip to come and visit my daughters, I have two daughters that live, one in New Mexico and the other one in Texas, and I wanted to see them. I also felt like this was the perfect opportunity for me to demonstrate to myself that the beliefs that I have, that I can take action and show them, not to the world, but to myself. And that was the insight, one of the insights that came, that this was a time where, as we humans are going through this incredible transformational time, that it had gotten to that point where we needed to take actions and demonstrate what we believed. And if our beliefs and our actions would not reconcile, and then we had to tweak and change something. Because as the planet Earth would move into higher dimensional spaces, the energy was going to move faster, and whether we keep up with what she's doing or not, we were going to be affected. It's just like being in an airplane. If the airplane is going to crash, whether you're aware or not, you're going to be affected. So the same thing is happening to a lot of us. It's unfortunate though, because there are many human beings that live in this planet and they're completely oblivious to what is happening to it. There are many people that do not understand that planet Earth has her own consciousness. And although they're living here and they're passing through, they seem to not care or want to know what this place is about. And this is where I remind myself that it is an incredible mystery to know that I am in a planet that has the capacity to sustain herself in a galaxy by gravity. And that she does things every day in my life where I don't have to worry about. There are so many mysteries that are happening around us that we're not conscientious of it. We don't take the time to think that if those mysteries were not happening, we could not live this life that we're having. And somehow we have just become so self-absorbed to the point of not be aware that every decision that we take is not only affecting us or the people that we care about, but also people that live very far away from where you live. Of course, please forgive me if you feel like I'm lecturing you. I'm not here to do that. But my mind does work that way. And there are times when I get those questions that I think, wow, what an incredible place. So what are the things that I can do while I'm here that can make it better for myself, for the people that I care about, but even for the generations to come? Well, in this particular moment, the one thing that I could do was to prove to myself that if I believe something, I can take an action that reflect that belief. And that's what I felt that was the most important thing and why I took that journey. So I got in my car and there I went, just like a gypsy, with all kinds of things that could help me also be mindful and take care of myself. I also made a couple of videos where I expose my understanding about what this virus was about. And I don't remember if I did them in English. I think I did them in Spanish. But briefly, what the understanding that came to me was that we live in a reality that is a reflection of the vibrational one. And every conflict that we have here is reflecting the conflicts that we have in a vibrational level. We come from times where we have misunderstood who we are from a vibrational perspective. As a matter of fact, many people addresses the situation as we are a civilization with amnesia because we've forgotten where we come from. We've forgotten what we're capable of. And that has resulted in making decisions, us making decisions that for the collective is not equal. And when we sit down and we look around about what we've done so far, what can we say about our actions? Are we living in a planet where everybody is benefiting from well-being? Are we distributing our resources in an equal way? Are we making decisions to keep our planet healthy and harmonious? Do we understand the nature of the natural and organic world? Are we breathing fresh air? So when you start asking yourself all of those questions and we see proof of what we've done, we have a lot to work on. And in many situations, the attitude that we've taken is to think that it's none of our problems because we have a government that is making the decisions and we have no control over it, so then there's nothing for us to do. And maybe that's true, but what if it's not? What if by you becoming more conscientious of your decisions, you can actually change your reality and then become an example to the people around you? Maybe as a means of inspiration. And this is what my guides were telling me. This is not a time for you to just share ideas that you have not tested yourself. Because in reality, we are bombarded by ideas every day. And especially in this time of awakening, where so many people are remembering things about themselves and their journey in this physical reality in many different forms and ways, we are saturated with them. But the question is, which ones are we going to put to work? Now, of course, the media is not showing how there has been many communities that have been created where people are living more in harmony with the land, how people have access information from their DNA and how to live from free energy. I've been blessed to meet a few of them. And these are the things that the media is not telling you. And somehow they have been completely self-absorbed with bombarding you with information that is going to keep your vibration low. So I ask you, are you aware that you're a vibrational being? Are you aware that your body can instantly translate the energy around you? And while the mind can pull you into a story and the senses can tell you something, it doesn't mean that that is a true translation of what is taking place. And this is when a spirit reminded me, what you feel and what you think are two different things. And as you're learning more about your intuition, you have to take more actions that demonstrate that. And this is when your faith comes in. There are many people that believe, not until I see it, I don't believe it. But I am the kind of person that I believe it first and then I see it. But if I don't demonstrate that to myself through actions, and then it's bullshit. So when I went in that journey, the first experience that I had was that I rented a hotel where the reviews were great, but when I got there, as soon as I saw that place, I knew that vibrationally was not in alignment with me. So I tried to talk to the guy in the reception and the customer service, and he was like, well, I cannot refund you the money, but I can show you another room, because I had seen one room and I didn't like the energy smell. So not only when I arrived and I saw the hotel from the outside, I knew it was wrong, but when he took me to my room, it was even worse. Across the way, there was a Hampton Inn, and the energy looked totally different. So my intuition was saying, go to that place. Forget about the money that you're paying here. Go to that place. But I started to negotiate with my intuition. So I ended up staying in that place. And I meditated. I put vibrational sounds to help my body. And yet the next day when I woke up, I had the worst pain in my neck. And from that moment, I got the insight. This is what you do. Your body knows something, but your mind negotiates and gives you many reasons as to why you should stick around, and the result, this is the end result. So you always have to ask yourself, what do you want to obtain? What are you after? Because not until you single out with clarity what exactly you want, there's going to be always ways in which your mind is going to distract you from the path. And normally, it's not that the mind is doing it to drive you crazy. It's just that the quality of the mind is to base what it knows on events that have happened in the past. And if you crystallize those events through your memory, Now you are creating and recreating events in the future based on what you've done in the past. And this is where a lot of times we tend to repeat situations over and over again, with the hopes that maybe one day there is a miracle and things will change. And not understanding that not until we change what we think and believe, the reality around us is not going to change. So when I went through that experience, the next day I realized I would never do that. And I had already known this, but now I was going through from a different perspective and deeper. And there was a knowing within me that I said, as long as I become aware of the choices that I'm making, especially if my mind gets in the way, I will honor my intuition. So the rest of my trip became an opportunity to each day be present with what my body was saying and honoring that I would not know, or I did not know what was going to happen 1 minute to the next. And that yes, my mind was going to feel uncomfortable and it was going to start making noise, but that was just the way it was going to be, because that was the choice that I was making. Of course, I have a background where I've done meditations, retreat. I had an awakening a few years back in 2009, because I was meditating a lot. So I've experienced enough about my own mind to know the difference between my mind and my intuition. And yet it has taken me years to finally completely surrender to that inner knowing. So I can understand if you would hear these words and struggle with them, because it takes time to get to know your intuition. It takes time to understand how that part of you operates and in the way that communicates. But it's not impossible. I think that the most important thing is that you have to get to that point where you have to decide, is this what I really want to achieve? Not until you get there and then you're always coming in and out. Well, the second day I drove less hours because I was very tired. I did not get a good night's sleep, and I didn't want to put my body at risk. Not so much because I felt that I was afraid about catching the virus, but because I know that my immune system was low, and the virus is not the only sickness that we get. A lot of times people don't think, well, what's going to happen when the winter comes? The season where people normally gets a cold or gets any other virus. People have forgotten about that. But anyways, I went on the road, and my next stop was going to be in Colorado. I've never been in Colorado, and I wanted to go to Boulder. I decided to stay in the outskirts of Colorado, still in Nebraska. And that choice that I made in the hotel that I stayed was fantastic. I arrived there early enough to bring the stuff that I needed to bring from my car and to get comfortable. I sit in a wonderful suite, very clean, a lot of light. So I take a shower and then I sit in meditation. I put my sounds, and all of a sudden I became aware that I had a lot of fears in my heart. Energy that I was not even aware of. And then all of a sudden I realized that I was very afraid about the virus. And I asked myself, where is this coming from? Now, if you live in a big city, where we live one on the top of the other, a lot of times you are channeling somebody else's vibration. And especially during these times when people are really bringing out their fears in a way that we haven't done for thousands of years. No wonder sometimes you get out and you feel so bad right away. There are times when I've gone to the store where I could feel my lungs feel tight. And before I arrived in that store, I felt fine. There are times when my organism feels weak. And I wasn't feeling like that when I was at home. So if you have not learned to know your energy in relationship to other people, many times you'll be fine, and as soon as you connect with somebody else, you may be vibrating what somebody else was feeling. And now you're making it your own. And this is what we do a lot of times. So part of this quarantine that COVID-19 has created has been one of the opportunities that from a subconscious level we use to be able to stop all of our habits and repetitions that we've been creating for eons, and finally look at our lives and say, what do I want? Who do I want to be? Is this a true representation of me? Is my home expressing who I am? A lot of people don't know how to do that. A lot of people don't know how to be with themselves. And this is why there's so much anger and frustration, because many of these people do not like themselves. They've been programmed to believe from very young that they're not worthy, that they're not good enough. And they bought into the idea, and they have never stopped to take the time as to whether what they were taught is true or not. So now you come to a point in your life where you're being forced to stay with yourself, and you've never done before. You've never done that before. And when you stay long enough to feel your own energy and look around your place, you realize, I don't like myself, and I don't like where I'm doing. I don't like my life. And our tendency is to escape. So here came my next understanding. Am I choosing to escape my reality, or am I choosing to really demonstrate to myself that I can create my reality based on what I believe to be true? So as I'm sitting there and I'm feeling all of these fears that are now coming out with a story, I'm realizing that, well, am I afraid of dying? No, that was not the case. I was afraid of getting sick. Well, isn't that a contradiction? Because we've been sick many times before, at least I have. So if I get sick, what is the worst thing that can happen? Die? But I just said I was not afraid of dying. So when my mind realized that contradiction, something shifted. And I can feel how all of that energy around my heart was dissolving. Soon after I finished that meditation, I went to YouTube, and then I reinforced that emotional state, that positive emotional state, with videos that sometimes my guides bring me. I apologize, that's my dryer. Sometimes brings me so that I can be certain that what I'm believing and intuitively picking up is the truth. And sure enough, I found a couple of videos that were extremely helpful, and all of a sudden I felt like, yeah, I'm good. I went to sleep and I slept like a baby. The following day, I went on in my journey. I spent part of my day in Boulder, It was awesome. Then I decided to drive through Denver and end up in this little town in the southern part of the country of Colorado, in the middle of the desert. And the hotel was neither good or bad, but my energy was in a different state because now I was not dependent on my environment to feel better. I could do that on my own. And of course, constantly paying attention to what my body needed. And I'm not talking about desire, because all of that comes from the mind. It was more about the essential things that my body needed to remain strong and healthy. Well, following day, I move on into New Mexico and I enter through the desert, Taos. And at some point, and this is one of my highlights in my trip, I'm driving in the middle of the desert and I'm almost entering New Mexico. And for an hour, my friends, I was in the middle of the desert with no one else. It was just me, the desert, the sky, and the air. And to me, that was a gift because I loved the feeling of just feeling all of that energy that Mother Earth exudes when she's by herself. And I was a witness to that. I remember I made a video that maybe I should add. I don't know how to do that, but I will try. And if I don't, I don't. But it felt wonderful. Now, some people that could be a challenge because why so much isolation? But for me, it was heaven. After that, I entered in Taos and then had the opportunity to go to the skiing resort in Taos. Although it was closed for skiing, but people were still there because along the mountain there is this spring of water. There's a lot of nature, and I saw a lot of people traveling and hanging out in nature by the river, which is one of the advantages that many people have when they live in places like this. And it's one of the ways in which we can transform fear and insecurities. And this was another of my insights, that we are nature. Our body is nature. And one of the ways that we can release fear and worries and tension and stress is when we connect with the energy of nature. She has an incredible way of helping us recharge our batteries, especially if we have the element of water and earth. We are what? 80% water and the rest is earth. So if you're really struggling right now as I speak with your emotions, and as you look at your life, you feel that you're paralyzed because you're afraid that you're going to be contaminated or you're going to get sick and you're going to die, my friend, I highly recommend that whatever you're at, find a place with nature and just surrender your fears and speak to Mother Earth and give yourself the opportunity to have that experience and see what happens. I'm going to have to stop that for a moment because otherwise it's going to continue. Okay, I'm back. Thank you for waiting. Well, so having that time felt really good. I felt very grounded. And then I knew that I was going to my daughter's house, my oldest one, and that I would now enter into another dimension where two people are, her and her partner, are cultivating a particular energy, and I didn't know exactly how all that was going to play out. But yet I offered my daughter that I understood if she didn't want me to stay to her place or we didn't have to hug. Once again, being mindful of her beliefs. But she said, no worry, moms, it's all good. I mean, I could tell that she had some fears, but, I had not really spent any time with anybody else except myself. And I was taking precautions just to be mindful because I don't want to be the reason why my daughters would get sick. So I arrived at her place, stayed 3 weeks with her, and there came the other awareness. And it was that with all the information that I have gathered and how my energy had shifted, that now that energy could help the people around me. In this case, my daughter. So instead of teaching her my beliefs, that it was a better option to just become an example of who I'm becoming, become an example of my beliefs, and that would be the best of way of helping anyone. What I noticed was that she started to change, and by the end of my trip, my daughter was in a very different emotional place, her and her partner. Like, she had lost a lot of fear. She spent less time listening to the news, and we spend more quality time. I mean, this is the other opportunity that we're having, that, our idea of quality time with our family members is very different than what true quality time is. And when my daughters would come and visit me, they were always busy, meeting friends, going out. And yes, they would spend time with us, but not like this time. So we got to spend some really good time together and had a lot of fun. And then it came to that point where something told me it's time to move on. I think I was getting a little bit too comfortable, but something happened that shifted my awareness where it's like, you got to move on. And the question was whether I was going to end up in Texas to see my youngest one or go to Sedona. And here's where I have my other experience. I started to doubt myself. Once again, the mind is very skilled at doing that and doing that. And the reason why it happened was because I started letting my oldest daughter's fear get to me. She kept telling me, Mom, you shouldn't go to Texas and see my youngest sister. I don't want you to get sick. Texas is doing really bad with COVID-19. You shouldn't go. So once again, she's bringing out that concern, and she was not as afraid as she was in the beginning, but I could see that there was some in there. And that sort of made me think as to, should I really go or not? Now, once again, I'm reminded that when you spend a long time on your own, you're harnessing your own energy. And then you go and hang out with other person. A lot of times you're going to feel different. And that different is not you, it's the other person. So we always need to be mindful of how we're feeling before we go somewhere or meet somebody. Because a lot of times we end up feeling what other people are feeling and responding to those feelings. So when my daughter said that to me, I thought about it, and all of a sudden I had this incredible sadness of, oh my God, am I going to let a virus get in the way between my daughter and I? I love my kids, and what if they lived with me? And my youngest one, she's a nurse, and her partner too. And she already had COVID-19, and her partner did too. But she's exposed to it all the time. And the perspective that my oldest daughter was coming from was, well, they're always exposed to it, so they can bring it home, and now you're exposed to it. But I'm thinking in my head, and I wasn't telling her this, but I'm thinking, yeah, but the virus is everywhere. And this virus doesn't have a life unless you give it to, that life. But so just because she's in the hospital, it's true that she's more exposed to it. But I mean, there's so many people that have it and don't have symptoms. And we tend to think that only in certain places you're going to find it more than others just because you're closer to human. Of course, because there is a doubt as to whether you get infected by other people. I mean, there's a tendency to believe that it's true or that it's airborne. I mean, there's all of these things where it's like implying that we don't have a body that is strong enough or smart enough to handle any situation. So now we need to protect ourselves because we're such a weak human beings. And this goes totally against my beliefs. So when she was telling me that, all of a sudden I started crying because I thought how sad it would be for my youngest daughter to know that her mom was so close to her and didn't come to visit her. And I know that there is a part of her that doesn't want me to get sick and didn't want me to be here because she was like, Mom, don't come. But I knew that deep down she would be like, but I miss my mom. I want my mother. Because when you are feeling sick and you don't feel good, for those of you who have had a good connection with mom, don't you want mom? You want mom to be nearby. So my daughter saw me crying, and I think she felt really bad. So I was debating whether I would come to Texas or go to Sedona. And you know what happened to me? When I decided that I was going to Texas, I got sick for 24 hours. And it was the weirdest experience because I remember waking up the day that I was going to leave, and I felt really good. And I started talking to my daughter's partner, and all of a sudden I got something in my throat. And I started coughing and coughing and coughing, and all of a sudden my stomach, I felt like I was going to vomit. And from there on, I was sick the whole day. So I spent that whole day sleeping. And the next day I woke up and I was perfectly fine. I didn't have a fever. I just felt sick to my stomach. But it was a sickness that I think it was expressing my inner conflict of not knowing where to go. So there comes the other insight that whatever you think, it becomes right away. So when you are vibrating in a faster frequency in relationship with Earth and in relationships with your beliefs, if you create a sudden resistance by your beliefs, you can see them right away. You can experience it right away. And to me, it came in a form of being sick because I kept all of that inside of me. So the next day I woke up and I knew that I had to go to Sedona. And so that's what I did. I ended up, so then I had to decide where to stay. And the place that I stayed, the girl that I connected with in the front desk, we started to talk, and all of a sudden we had this incredible synchronicity. She had lived in New Mexico. She had left New Mexico a month before. And now she was living in Sedona, and she's basically been traveling like that, where she got rid of her house, she let go all of it, her relationship, everything, because her partner did not treat her very well, and she decided to move on with her life. But that connection with her was incredible, because I ended up renting a room in that place, and it was amazing. I had an incredible view to Oak Creek Canyon. There was a spring of water running by the hotel. I mean, it was amazing. I was staying in the art district, an area that was very touristy, and I will tell you, when you get to Sedona, you're like in a whole different dimension. People were wearing masks, but there was no fear like you feel in other places. It was like everybody there was having their normal life, like they've always lived like that. So the other insight that I had then was that in the state of mind that you create for yourself, that puts you in your own dimension. And people that are vibrating in the same way emotionally would be a match for you. And there are many other dimensions going on parallel to you, and because they're different vibrations, they won't affect you. So when you are in a place where you have all kinds of people believing in all kinds of people, if you're able to keep yourself into your own energy based on your own beliefs, now you're in a dimensional space that no one can get you out of. And that was the other thing that now was showing up for me in a very clear way. So I felt very grounded, and instead of staying today, I stayed 3. And that was fantastic because I wanted to stay longer, but I knew that it was time for me to move on. So then I went to Tucson. I've never been there, and I stayed there for a night. Then the next day I was able to drive around some areas of Tucson, and I really like Tucson. It's a very progressive place. People are very nice. It's hot. It's very hot. So then I drove to Texas. And I'll tell you, my friends, my air conditioning was not working. So I was driving that Sonoran desert at 110 degrees. I thought I was going to die of, being suffocated. So the next day I decided that I was going to take my car to the dealer and check the air conditioner, but they were charging me an arm and a leg. So I decided to fix it when I would get here to Texas. Well, 6 hours later, I'm in Texas, but I am running late. And my daughter says, well, meet me at the hospital. And here comes the test that was finally going to show me that I stayed true to my faith, my beliefs, and my actions. This was it, you guys. I get a phone call from my daughter, a text actually, that as she was going into the hospital, when they took her temperature, she had 101. And she kept telling them that it was because she was too stressed. And my daughter is not a person that handles heat really well. She was born in Chicago, so she likes cold weather. It's kind of ironic because she loves cold weather, but she's in a really hot place. But they sent her home. Now, she was going to take 4 days off, but she had to work 2 days. The first day that I would arrive here and the next day, and then she would have 4 days in a row off. Well, they sent her home, and they told her that she would have to test again for COVID-19. So the following day, so I get to her house. She didn't want to get near me, and I'm like, oh no, baby, it's okay. Because I haven't seen her in so long. And She was sick back in March with the virus, and I was not around. So you need to remember that I am a mom and that I love my kids, and for my kids, I do anything. So I hugged her, and I did a prayer, and I talked to God, my guides, my ancestors, my angels, but also to this beautiful body. And I said, that's my baby. And I don't want to get sick if I don't have to, because it's not my reality. But that's my baby, and this virus cannot keep me away from her. And that's exactly what I did. And I'm gonna knock on wood because I'm a little bit superstitious, but I have not been sick. Now I've been here for 3 weeks. We spent 6 days, wonderful 6 days. We had a lot of fun. I've been able to cook a lot of good food and also give her a lot of the vitamins and minerals that I'm taking to keep me healthy. Now, she did get tested and she was positive, but as soon as she came home, the night that they sent her home, her fever went down right away. And she was taking her temperature for 3 to 4 days and she didn't have a fever. Also, she learned from the Department of Health that she shouldn't have been tested because when you have COVID, most likely you're going to have it in your DNA for a while. So they told her, well, the day before your vacation is done, just give us a call and we'll decide what to do. So we spent 6 days and she looked wonderful because now she's got mama's love and attention, and she went back to work, and she's been working for the last 3 days, and she never had symptoms. And yes, I can tell you that maybe I had the virus, but there are many people that are having it and they're having no symptoms, and I haven't had any symptoms. I've been feeling healthy. The only thing that sometimes I do get to feel is that if I am surrounded by negative people that have a lot of fear, I get affected by that. And this is when the other insight came through. That we need to remember that we are vibrational beings. And when we go to sleep, the bigger part of us, which is about 90%, is non-physical. And that part of us has the opportunity to travel to different dimensions at once. And it could go to either more dense vibrational places or less or higher vibrational planes. All depends on the energy that you cultivate emotionally. So then I had to ask myself, do I need to pay attention to how I'm feeling all the time? And the answer is yes. Why? Because I do not want to participate in bringing denser souls and vibrations to this reality. Just like we are able to transmit and attract higher vibrational beings and forces that can help us expand our consciousness and our intelligence, we can do the opposite too. So for those people that are totally unaware of how afraid they are and how paralyzed they've become because of what this virus represents, those people are being the door of letting energies to enter in this reality. And no wonder when you get near those people, you feel completely charged of awful energy. And this is where I now share and ask you, please be selective of what you let in. Please be selective of where you go. Ask yourself, who are you? Who do you want to be? What kind of energies you want to support? So that when you are in a situation, you have the opportunity to make a choice instead of being pulled by that situation. Be selective what you let in your mind, what you let in your body. And I'm not saying that you need to deprive yourself of the things that you want. All I'm saying is that what your mind needs is very different than what your body needs. And a lot of times our mind is filled with so much garbage. Garbage that is only getting in the way of our true joy and well-being. And if you have beliefs that you cannot live by, and then change them. Yes, it's really that easy. I think what is a little bit more challenging is to demonstrate them. And I believe that the reason why is because we've been programmed to behave in a way that we're constantly giving our power away. But we don't have to do that anymore. Not if you choose to. Not if you become aware of your power. And the beautiful thing now is that we have technology that has created ways to communicate where we don't have to just buy into one idea and abide by that idea. And that there are many people like me that are sharing some of their life experiences, and it's very inspirational. So not only am I having a journey where I am getting insights, but at the same time as I'm having more faith and trusting the process, I'm seeing the level of synchronicities that I'm creating. And it's effortless. Do you know what that means? It is effortless. It means I don't have to try hard. Now, to some people, that's going to sound strange, especially if you become accustomed to have to work hard for everything you have and to think that there's no other way because you've been programmed to believe that the only way to get everything in life is the hard way. And believe me, my friends, I was one of those. I understood not very long ago that I had created a belief that in order for me to feel worthy, I had to be with partners that were falling apart. Until I got to a point that I realized, am I nuts? Am I crazy? I was. So I hope that what I've shared with you in this video serves you well. And at least, even if maybe you don't buy into everything that I'm saying, but at least makes you think a little bit. And hopefully, it becomes the fuel for you to get away from your comfort zone and start thinking outside the box. So I appreciate the time you've taken to stay here and listen to what I've had to say. I wish you the best of luck. Until next time, namaste.